Hi, everyone, and thank you for attending this session. We'll be discussing the role that overlays and value-added services play in the adoption of payment rails. I'm joined by a fantastic group of industry leaders, but before we get to them, I'll share a global perspective on the impact that overlays have on real-time payment schemes. My name is Jim Filice, and I'm Vice President and Head of Visa Canada's new payment strategy. Not surprising to many of you, real-time payments are here and growing fast at a global scale. Now, the growth and speed of adoption varies market to market based on a variety of factors. The experience of UPI in India, for example, is quite different from what we see in the UK or Australia. But the one consistent driver of growth of any payment rail is the overlay services that complement the core and enable innovation from the ecosystem participants. We typically see three foundational components: core infrastructure of clearing and settlement, overlays such as risk analytics, alias directories, request to pay, and others. And lastly, the applications and user experiences that the ecosystem builds for consumers and businesses. Let's take a closer look at each component. At launch, we typically see capabilities to deliver account-to-account transfers, instant clearing and settlement, and detailed remittances. Then we see the critical overlays that bring immediate value to the rail. We can't think of these overlays as optional. They are critical services. And the success of the rail are dependent on making these overlays available to as broad an ecosystem as possible. Compliance support, resolution management, tokenization, risk services, alias directories, request to pay. These have existed within card payments for decades, and we tend to take them for granted. The fact is, they're still at limited levels of maturity for account-based payments. Overlay services are what drive the third layer, where the ecosystem can build and deliver enhanced experiences for use cases such as disbursements, e-invoicing, bill pay, cross-border payments, P2P, and others. So at Visa, we believe exporting some of the overlays from card networks to be used on other rails can be key in accelerating adoption. So let's take a look at Canada's proposed RTR. At its core, it's a significant foundational upgrade. Always on, immediate, irrevocable, data rich. And it's important to note that Payments Canada has taken it a step further, with making request to pay foundational to the new rail. It'll be interesting to see how other key overlays are developed and made available to the ecosystem. Things like directories, fraud management, risk tools, tokenization, and others that add efficiency, security, and trust. So let's take a look at a couple of different markets. OSCO is a great example of delivering peer-to-peer and consumer-to-business payments, leveraging request to pay and pay ID directories for bill pay in Australia. Swish in Sweden is another example. Started with a modern directory to link a single alias to multiple bank accounts, so the payee could direct the payment to their account of choice through rules and mandates versus manual routing. They recently launched Request to Pay as part of their biller platform, allowing the biller to better understand their cash flow and liquidity position based on where their requested payments sit in the payment lifecycle. I mentioned India earlier. UPI offers simple and easy access to India's immediate payment service. While OSCO and Swish are bank-led services, growth in India is driven by fintech and its ability to scale through overlays made available by UPI. Volume was relatively flat when it launched in 2016, and growth accelerated with the introduction of PhonePe, Google Tez, Amazon Pay, and Paytm. When we look at card rail adoption and go back several decades, we see similar trends. Card rails have also accelerated based on overlays: dispute management, fraud scoring, tokenization, card controls, instant issuance, virtual cards, and that list continues. Card schemes have benefited from decades of maturity in these overlays and a rich ecosystem of participants building experiences for consumers and businesses. New rails are benefiting from all the learning and moving quicker through the introduction of these key overlays. Open banking and digital currencies have a similar adoption path. At Visa, we're working with global payment rails and look forward to bringing our experience and overlay services to support Payments Canada and the expanded Canadian ecosystem to deliver much needed innovation for Canadians and Canadian businesses. And now let's meet my fellow panelists.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. I know there was a bit of two sessions to take a look at, so hopefully you were able to join the previous session where I touched on real-time payments adoption and how key overlays are proving to be the catalyst that enable the ecosystem to deliver on market innovation. You know, if you missed that session, that's all right. It's available for recording, so hopefully you can watch it later. Just some housekeeping items before we get started. You'll see the Ask the Speaker section. You can upload your favorite questions. We'll be able to see those, and we'll get to some of those at the end of the session. And then also join the conversation. You can text chats to your fellow attendees, and hopefully we can make this an interactive session. Just a reminder, your mic and video will be disabled for this, so it'll just be us. My name is Jim Filice. I'm Vice President, Head of New Payments for Visa Canada. I'm absolutely humbled by the talent joining me today. It's probably why so many of you are actually in this session and joined this session, so I don't think you want to hear from me as much as you want to hear from these fantastic panelists. So without any further ado, I'm gonna jump in. We'll jump into introductions. We do have limited time, so what I'm asking is everyone to do their introduction, and then also share one innovation that you're most excited about to deliver to Canadians or Canadian businesses through your respective modernization journeys. So I guess I'll start with Dean, then we'll go to Dougal and Chris.
Hi, folks. Christine Hunter here. I'm the head of TD Strategy and Transformation for Enterprise Payments. And I've been at TD for quite some time doing product roles within credit cards, personal lending, and most recently in payments. Really excited to be here. Thanks, Jim, for having us. Welcome, everyone. And, I've spent, and I am very committed to everything that we're talking here about, spent a number of years working with the industry, committed to real-time payments. Really, really excited about really the transformative opportunity that's in front of us. So it starts with a very basic expansion of existing capabilities in market, really making the lives of Canadians that much easier through, I think, number one, expansion of limits. So the higher the limit, obviously, the more use cases and the more Canadians can use the rail every single day. And then in addition, I think I look forward to the competition. I look forward to my colleagues here on the call and all of us kind of diving in and seeing just how far we can take this in terms of use within the country. So for me, an example of that is in the near term is really to work with businesses across the country to make this, the way to move money in a lot of cases for simple transactions that Canadians interact with every day. And I'll get more into some examples of that as we go through the panel. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Christine. And thanks, Jim, for having us today. I'm Dougal Middleton at Scotiabank. I'm responsible for the transformation of our payments franchise associated with the global modernization activities that are afoot here. We also lead the digital platforms and digital enablement strategies of our global business payments team. And in that regard, we're primarily focused on the business segments across the small business, corporate, and commercial communities. Jim, I think one innovation is a difficult question and a difficult thing to look at, but the community at large is going through a massive amount of digital transformation, especially in the business sectors. And in talking to clients, they're seeking ways to be able to transform their businesses as well as their cash management and payment operations. And so in that regard, we're really, really focused on making sure that we're looking at this as a way to take data-rich, real-time, on-demand payment services and really enable that innovation in the client side and really help them on their digital transformation journeys and rethink how we deploy services and embed services and make them available for our clients to be able to better transform end-to-end transparency, certainty, and precision in their cash management operations. We talk a lot to the corporate and commercial clients, and the vast majority of them are looking for ways that they can make use of this. They all have digital agendas in flight in various states of progression. I think with the advent of the real-time rail coming online, the launch of Interact e-transfers for business, we're really now into that real-time on-demand world, and the ecosystem is starting to really form up around that, which is really, really exciting for us to be able to seek the new opportunities that are really going to foster that innovation in the community.
Awesome. Thanks, Dougal. Chris, why don't we go to you, and then we'll tail off with John.
Awesome. Thanks, Dougal. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Christine. Today, I'm Senior Vice President of Payment Strategy and Transformation at Cibc. I'm relatively new to banking in the Canadian market. Before Cibc, I was at Square, where I led their industry relations and payments operations organization in California. Before Square, I was at both Google and Visa. Here at Cibc, I sit within the retail bank, and I have responsibilities spanning both personal and business banking. I lead debit, digital payments, recently our open banking file, and I've been most recently working with the team to return Cibc to merchant acquiring, as you would have seen from an announcement we made back in February with the announcement of our investment in collaboration with a software company based out of the UK called Pollinate. We're re-entering in 2022 the merchant acquiring landscape. In addition to a lot of the thoughtful comments from others on the panel, I just add that Cibc is really looking at the space around small business and business banking as an imperative strategically, one that we probably underinvested in historically, and one that we're really committed to getting back into. So in addition to what we're doing in merchant acquiring, we made really big investments in Visa installments in collaboration with Jim and his team. We were one of the first banks to launch that in Canada. In fact, I think we were the first bank to launch that globally. And then in addition to that, we've made some really interesting investments, not least of which are collaboration and partnership with Costco, which we recently announced, but also that conversion is now underway.
Awesome. And John, welcome back.
Well, it's always fun when you're running the technology and you have a technology hitch. But notwithstanding, John Cowan, the Chief Technology and Operations Officer of Payments Canada. I'm responsible for the payment modernization projects for Canada. I'm responsible for the operations, technology, security, and product across the payment landscape. Previously, I was at Cibc running enterprise payments, a lot of what Chris just spoke with, but different type of role. Prior to that, I was at the largest bank in Australia, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and I ran their commercial and professional division before immigrating to Canada and doing a wide range of different roles. What I'm most excited about, I'm actually seeing, I can't talk too much about, but Payments Canada has a sandbox for the real-time rail going live in Canada with live APIs around how single credit transactions and how our CCIN, which is the originator database, can be used by many participants, not just the incumbent large banks. And we're seeing a huge amount of activity and new types of products being built for Canada. We're not the first to be doing these type of faster payment programs. And so many, both fintechs and, as you heard from the great members here, a lot of people are spending a lot of money on innovation and building out great new products in the end, all for safety and soundness and the best possible outcomes for consumers in the future. So not exactly, I'm an innovator to make sure that people can go into our sandbox, Jim, and I'm seeing it, and I'm excited about what's happening in Canada in the next number of years as all this goes live.
Awesome. And again, thanks to all of you for joining. I think it's going to be an exciting conversation. I certainly have seen a lot of messages come my way of individuals excited about this one. So hopefully we can deliver on that. So John, while your connection's still good and you're here, I will. The first question will be over to you. And you touched on this, right? Your sandbox and the things that you're encouraging participants and a broader set of participants to participate in the sandbox and innovate. As the operator of RTR and or all the rails in Canada, what are the conditions that you're looking to create that'll help stimulate innovation? Like, what is that set of foundation that you as the operator need to create so that all the wide range of participants, banks, incumbents, broader range of fintech that come to Canada, that want to participate in Canada and want to deliver those experiences to Canadians and Canadian businesses? What is that foundational piece that you need for to develop for the rail?
So number one is obviously safety and soundness. Payments Canada moves almost $500 billion a night, not just in the RTR. So we want to ensure that there's no negative shocks between the participants and other systems. We want to ensure that we have fair and transparent pricing for all participants to make sure that everyone, as the operator, gets the true cost of use rather than a volume basis, and that the system should be designed for fair competition. As I said, competition and a level playing field is critical for us. We want open risk-based access. Obviously, we're a prominent payment system. We have to meet the Bank of Canada's prominent standards and ensure integrity of our systems as we move forward. We want to ensure there's credit risk around this, so the RTR, should employ a coverall default pay position, and we want settlement finality. We want fair and open access for competition and innovation. As I said, we're seeing so many people in our sandbox working on different things and different types of proposition. It's a really important part. We've got an agreed upon live scope to deliver in the summer of 2023 of the RTR, for instance, and obviously we've already delivered the Lynx MT and the MX project, which MX will go later this year. But the agreed upon scope and where we're going next is really important. There's a backlog and there's specific requirements around how do we make the system more ubiquitous. And finally, we need a request to pay. We need access to some of the great services that are out there. As a utility provider, we just want access to all of those type of systems for all of the participants on an equal and fair basis. It's great for Canada if we can get to that, but that's really the key elements to make this system successful for Canada and actually international competitiveness with most of the other faster payment rails.
Thanks, John. I mean, it is pretty exciting, and actually summer of next year does not sound that too far away. So obviously there's a lot of heavy lifting that needs to happen between now and then, and I'm sure everyone's digging in, which is exciting for us. I'm sure it's exciting for the panelists and everyone listening. So Christine, based on what you heard from John, so you've got some timelines, you've got the foundational elements of RTR. Can you talk a little bit more around what are the opportunities that this creates for both TD and your clients? And is there an element that needs to be in place that allows TD to actually deliver on the innovation that your customers are expecting?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks, John, for your comments. And I would say, obviously as a major Canadian financial institution, safety and soundness is absolutely critical. We've seen other jurisdictions, move through the curve with early issues surrounding fraud and that type of thing. So, any of my comments, I guess, would be based on a prudent, resilient system. So appreciate all the efforts that have gone into this across the board, whether it be vendors, Payments Canada, Bank of Canada's oversight, and so on. I think that's very critical to get right. But beyond that, then, as TD Bank, our goal post the First Horizon acquisition is to be a top 5 bank within North America and within the US specifically. So we have the great opportunity of partnering and watching what's happening and driving actually what's happening, for example, in the US with TCH. TD has most recently launched a TD Auto Finance funding mechanism through real-time rails there. It has been an amazing success. So any of us that's got to, have a bit of a taste of what's happening globally or even here in Canada in terms of just the early moves that we've made in this space can see huge potential for growth. So funding contracts for our auto partners, our dealers across the country, looking at use cases, for example, in those moments of truth. So, at TD, we're always talking about moments of truth where customers, are living their lives, have big moments in front of them. Real estate transactions come to mind in that vein in terms of great opportunities. I think you mentioned overlays in terms of a theme here. I think there are networks and communities within the ecosystem whether it's auto dealers, all lawyers and others that participate, real estate agents that participate in any sort of real estate type transaction, and others. I think there's a lot of brainstorming and opportunity to tap into those communities to really start to eliminate the things that drive everybody crazy. Like, I've got to go to my bank to get a certified check or a draft, or bring a ton of information in to drive a wire transaction. So I think that there is also great opportunity in the true real-time nature of the rail, and the sheer breadth, as John described, in terms of new participants and new use cases flowing out. But I think for me, what's even more important than the real-time aspect is just the on-demand nature of this, where you're not batching it up. You're not looking for an overnight process. You could still batch it up, actually. There's bulk opportunities here with our business clients. But the on-demand nature of using this to drive much more seamless, easy, kind of push of a button type transactions for everyday use, again, is really where I and TD Bank get pretty excited.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it is exciting, right? I mean, you can just imagine the use cases that come to mind, and I think the question becomes, who's going to take advantage of that, right? Where it's not about where the it's not about is there opportunity, it's about which opportunity do we want to prioritize. Mm-hmm. There's so much, right? Yeah. Dougal, so we've got a modernized ecosystem. You've got the foundational elements. You've got some security in there. You got data-rich services and an always-on platform. You've got a wide range of fintech, paytech, incumbents, et cetera, participating in this. Specializing in certain areas. How does Scotiabank envision bringing all of these enhanced services to life? Is there a role for partnerships and beyond, or how does Scotiabank look at capturing the opportunity that this makes available?
Yeah, I think there's two elements to this, Jim. It's one from a bank lens perspective, where do we want to play and what matters most to our client base, and then the second is sort of those broader ecosystem challenges that really require a lot more activity across the ecosystem, across all different types of participants to really come together to solve those broader challenges. You look at the foundational elements, it's really about that evolution of the toolkit and how we're actually going to apply it. We've done a lot of work here at Scotiabank to really deconstruct a lot of the payment journey and the payment assets that we have and turn them into those deployable tools where we can kind of surgically attack some of the different challenges that our clients have and really start to help them transform from a digital perspective and really start to get precise on the solution sets that we're able to bring to them. And so very basic things like validating account numbers are a massive amount of friction for a lot of entities that have to do things with high volume payments and whatnot, and being able to put things into their hands that allow them to eliminate some of that friction up front in their journeys makes a ton of sense for so many different businesses out there. Being able to consume a lot of these services internally, sort of eat what we're cooking ourselves to be able to demonstrate usage and drive new value for our clients. We're doing a lot of work internally across the bank to be able to do that type of thing with various different operational teams and back office teams to be able to demonstrate the ability to move money in real time and the data rich elements that come with it to be able to solve for end customer problems that they're faced with. And so it's really about how you put it all together. And so we're focusing primarily in those customer journeys that make the most sense, and where do our clients have the biggest problems that they're trying to solve. And they're making digital choices out there across the ecosystem, partnering with different platforms to solve those problems and run their business and transform themselves. And we're working closely with them to be able to really deploy our services within those journeys to help them along that journey. But I think when we look broader, there's big ecosystem challenges and there's big domains that we can solve collectively. We have to look at really what do the assets that, the RTR and real-time payments across a variety of different providers that are out there, what do those assets bring to the market? And how do we make sure that we're really focused on employing them in a way that unlocks the value without creating a confused, fragmented market and a bunch of different experiences that are, ultimately disparate. And so where we look at how this comes to life, we have to keep our eyes on, where do we actually need to embark on a build type journey versus where do we need to really scrutinize what exists out there, how can it evolve, and who are the right players to help the community evolve it, right? And it's not just about the FIs, it's not just about the networks that exist today, it's about all of the participants coming together to be able to solve those higher order issues. A lot of those foundational elements exist today. And we look at the CCIN with Payments Canada and the bill pay space. We look at the bill pay space in general. There's potential there to do something great because it's not necessarily fit for purpose anymore. So with these new foundational assets and different players coming to the table, I think we can probably do a lot of innovation and deliver new services that solve those broader problems.
Yeah, thanks, Stu. I mean, this brings a great opportunity for us to really focus on, collectively, how can we improve the lives of Canadians and Canadian businesses, right? It's fundamentally a massive shift that gives us all to think about, how do we deliver those services that we all wish and hope that we could use and our kids could use into the future, and if we could find a way to collaborate in a variety of fronts with the ultimate goal of delivering, better services. I'm absolutely excited about that, and I do think it's going to require a broader set of players that we maybe are traditionally used to in our market. Chris, Dougal touched on bill pay. John talked about request to pay. You mentioned Pollinate and your partnership there. With all of that coming in, the importance of request to pay, what are the benefits that businesses can expect to take advantage of in the way of requesting payments in the future? And similar maybe to Dougal's question, how does CIBC think about accelerating innovation, and do you have to go to market differently given the unique circumstances that RTR and I think the Canadian ecosystem is creating?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Much as how we as financial institutions all have to think about investing in client experiences, like small businesses, retailers especially, they think quite the same. It's all about best in class experiences. What can I do to make my customer relationship entrenched, right? Request to pay and bill payment are great examples of that. When we think about how that's modernized over the last few years, 10 years ago, I think the expression was the invoice is in the mail, right? You wait for the invoice to arrive. You have to navigate through the details. If you're unfortunate, you kind of forgot why you got an invoice. You thought you paid it already. You're adjudicating details long after the fact. You're going to end up writing a check, you find your stamp. It's a bad experience. If you're intuitive enough, you were fortunate to move to online banking and mobile banking application and move it to digital. But for many decades, this is what our parents and what we did every Saturday morning. We navigated through the process of paying our bills. Right? A tangible example just today, I live in the US. I have a lawn care company that comes in and they do an okay job. They're not a great lawn care company. Sometimes they drive over my sprinkler system and I have to have the sprinkler system replaced. They don't do a great job. But what they do is every month they send me a request to pay. It's an email invoice. It's extremely intuitive. They give me tons of options. The details all there in one place. And I can choose to pay with credit card, debit card, bank routing. I can use Zelle in the US. So I can use kind of a modern peer-to-peer payment system to pay. It's a really phenomenal, good experience. And what I appreciate about it most isn't that the lawn care company does necessarily what I need them to on my lawn all the time. It's that the way they've valued my time and the way that they appreciate that convenience matters to me. They're giving me the option of how I want to pay. And I can still cut them a check if I want to subject myself to that pain. But at the end of the day, they want me to set it and forget it just as much as anyone else. And so what's happening here is payments, whether it was check and bill payment or frankly, even credit card and debit card, it's moving toward an environment of embedded commerce and invisible interactions. And what I really appreciate at this point in my life is that on Saturday morning, I want to be playing with my kids. I don't want to be writing out checks and paying my bills the old-fashioned way. And so I appreciate that about that experience. And for that relationship, I'm not going to switch. I'm an embedded, entrenched customer. So that's number one. I want that reliable experience. And I don't entertain the idea of shopping for a new service provider there. In another example going back to your question on innovation, what the real-time rail is doing is it's modernizing the Canadian landscape, but at the same time, it's forcing us to think about that embedded, invisible transaction. And it's forcing banks like CIBC, like all of ours, to be really focused on how we become value-added service providers. How do we make the experience more positive for our customers, less transactional? What can we do beyond just the simple money movement to derive and provide value to our customers? This is really forcing a new psychology for a lot of banks, not just CIBC, and how we think about not just being the facilitator of value transfer and money movement, but how do we really truly provide value-added services from which we need to reinvent ourselves? Because in a lot of ways, one of the benefits of these options is that it's going to drive more competition. It's going to drive down cost in a great way for our customers. Let's embrace that and let's reinvent our business models a little bit. And so I see that being a benefit for us. In terms of innovation and how we react to the changing landscape, we know really quickly that we've invested, as most banks have, over decades in monolithic infrastructure. Our solutions, as a result, have become inflexible and monolithic. We won't be able to compete on client experience unless we figure out how to partner with others that do technology better than traditionally banks have been able to. And frankly, the way banks will be able to in a highly regulated environment. We bring the best of two assets when we look at partnership. We bring technology and we bring a really strong, trusted expectation that consumers and small businesses have of their banks, that we can provide safety, security, and soundness. Let's not lose sight of that. Let's use partnerships to do that. And I think as a result of that, we're really thinking about testing and learning and experimentation in new ways as CIBC. We're thinking through how to iterate really quickly in ways that infrastructure historically has not allowed. And that's really going to be through APIs, RESTful APIs, and ultimately through partnerships with companies like Pollinate.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris, and good luck with your lawn care provider. I mean, it's interesting, right? So you get the value, you're not switching despite maybe their lawn performance, but at the same time, the value that the business is getting from that request to pay process is probably equally as important to them, because they have line of sight of where their payment is, when it's coming, and probably a lot less delinquencies and forgotten bills, et cetera. So I think it goes both ways, irrespective of what your lawn looks like. Christine, let's maybe stay on request to pay. I know Chris kind of talked about where the consumer side will really benefit. When you combine modernized alias directories, biller platforms, what can you expect the consumers to start to see going forward? We know bill pay is what it is in Canada. It could probably be better. What are the things that you're thinking about at TD on how to improve that experience for Canadians?
Sure. I mean, I think bill pay is really a bit of a holy grail, right? I mean, it is at the core of everyday interactions for our clients, where our dream state would be that, you're actually helping clients to pay their bills on time and manage their personal finances. And equally so, you've got toolkits and support for your business clients on, managing that cash flow. That's not, so that's a banker's perspective in terms of, a place that we would all kind of want to take things in terms of making it as absolutely seamless as possible, really getting into the, consumers living their lives and the businesses running their business. But, beyond that, obviously there are interests of multiple players in this space. We obviously have evidence of success. So as Chris highlighted, again, looking to the US and other parts of the world, you see the extrapolation in the use of request to pay. I love in Chris's example that it's payments choice. So here, at Payments Canada, we often talk about the real-time rail as being the kind of the single area of innovation. But I think that the request to pay feature really plays out, beyond real-time rails and does provide that choice for customers. And so certainly in top of mind in terms of our thinking at TD Bank is to be where the customer is and to provide ample choice. In that mix, I think, we're exploring all and any ideas in terms of potential partnerships. I'm monitoring as we're speaking here some of the questions coming in from the group. And I think that there's a natural evolution that we should be cognizant of from, of Payments Canada, for example, moving from a predominantly clearing and settlement agency to now very much into the payment exchange business, and then a question mark of, the additional services that are available. One of the great outlets in our interactions with Payments Canada is the opportunity to tap into communities. So this week, for example, we had a joint, and for those that don't know, I'm also happen to have the privilege of being the MAC, the Member Advisory Chair, for Payments Canada and on behalf of 20 plus financial institutions. And with David Chance and crew on the stakeholder community side, we had a joint full session. I think there's ample opportunity for good debates and ideas to be shepherded and or facilitated by Payments Canada. I think there will be a natural debate that comes out of that in terms of who, how, where, when, all of these things kind of play out. TD is interested in all of the above. So obviously, transparently, we've been talking to you, Jim, about some potential opportunities with Visa. We would potentially, look to other networks as well. And all to say that the rail at Payments Canada should, at minimum, facilitate the expansion of, the services and the innovations that can certainly flow out through the country. What I think is a watch item for me is the uniqueness, I guess, that the Canadians have seen in terms of the real focus historically and still pervasive in our thinking is this ubiquity aspect. Vis-a-vis, again, looking to the US, where you've really got a hyper competitive market. And while that does provide optionality to consumers, it also can create some friction and fracturing of things. So I think we can have some really good, healthy debates here in Canada on how to actually strike the balance between, too many of a certain solution that actually leads to, a bad situation for Canadians relative to a centralized approach. So I don't have the answers, but just in terms of watching some of the key questions top of mind, they're top of mind for me as well and for TD. And I think that conversations and getting on with, getting past the foundational stage of all this would set us up nicely for more.
Yeah, I at the end of the day, both, biller choice, consumer payer choice, all of that makes a lot of sense. I think in the Canadian market, RTR and modernization just gives us the opportunity now to just rethink how we're doing things. It's not just about RTR, but more broadly. To your point, an example from the UK where it is truly disruptive and a lot of players, to your point, there's been so many players come into market offering so many services that it actually has kind of stalled things more than enabled things because certain players aren't sure where to invest. And I think in the Canadian market, we have that opportunity to both enrich the ecosystem, but also build around, central foundational elements that then allow us to deliver, even more powerful, ubiquitous solutions in the market. So definitely pretty excited about that. John, coming back to you, foundational questions. You think of traditional account-based payments today, as RTR scales, things like pre-authorized debits, traditional bill pay, how do these experiences change? Do they move to RTR? Does that create more opportunity? Does it create more competition? How do you see that coming into play into the future as you have RTR account-based payment, but you also have account-based payments as part of other rails?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would start with saying what you've heard from all of the participants here today is around. We've created a path through innovation in Canada, and we're a utility in the center. So if you talk about our traditional batch type payments that you're really talking about, I think there's a great opportunity to leverage the incredible investment we've made in the infrastructure in Canada and the utility in the center. I really am interested in where the different types of payments will go. There's lots of instruments. We could talk about checks, the elimination of paper and all of those things. But I think we should absolutely leverage the investment we've made in Canada and what we have. But it won't ever be a big bang. There's a lot of different participants working right now on different solutions for the future batch. Where should checks go? Should they be electronic payments that are request to pays? There's all types of ideas happening in the ecosystem right now. My key part is we need to leverage the investment and go back to what Chris said, give ability. The RTR is just one rail. We have to give consumers and businesses the choice of what they want to use. We'll be just one part of that incredible utility with the right type of services. And we have to get, the cost per transaction to a level where all those types of batch payments will just flow on to the real-time rail or into our large value payment system, the Lynx system. Again, it's a really big challenge. For those that don't know, there's 1 billion e-transfers a year, but there's 7.5 billion batch type payments a year. So, the opportunity here for Canada to be innovative is huge. And the opportunity to leverage what we've done with the real-time rail and also our Lynx platform for large value payments and make sure that we have liquidity into the market and new services are going to be key. I'm really excited because you just heard from all of the participants here, all the innovation they're doing. Our job at Payments Canada is to be, a great utility, safely and soundly delivering what we do, but also being a catalyst for innovation. And I'm excited what's coming, not just from what I'm hearing from the existing banks, but also all of the, the pay techs and the fintechs. It's an exciting time for Canada. And it's not just Canada because it's cross-border. And you heard about what Zelle's doing and what the clearinghouse and how all that will work. And this is the future of payments. So I don't want to talk just about our traditional, pre-authorized debits. And, I think with open banking coming, consumer consent, digital ID, they all play together to build an ecosystem that will be safe and sound. But again, I caution everyone, like many did here, we've seen jurisdictions like, I'll use Brazil for example, where they had multiple competing proxy databases. I don't know if that's a great outcome for Canada because which one wins? So those sort of discussions, which Christine just spoke about with our SAC participants, are going to be really important to shape. Are we going to go down these paths where, we drop off cliffs, we climb up the other side, or are we going to get to real outcomes for every individual Canadian? And that's why I always talk about a fair and level playing field. If someone holds an asset too tight, someone will replicate it. That's how it works now. So if they're utility type assets, I think we have to get ubiquitous access to those to make sure that and allow competition to thrive. Awesome.
Thanks, John. And we are basically at time, but I'm going to take a quick question because I think we could rapid fire through this. What's going to stop you from delivering some of these innovations that you talk about? Like, what is the thing that you've got to get out of the way? Is it getting out of your own way, or what is it in order to make this thing happen? Chris, I'll start with you, and then we'll go around.
Yeah, I don't want to be too pessimistic and say it's regulation and compliance and overhead. But I will say that there's a degree to which we have to get out of the old ways of thinking, and we have to start moving toward kind of the thought process of what our customers most want, which is that we provide those best-in-class experiences, and that we do that through experimentation and testing, which won't happen unless we get out of the old ways of thinking that we can operate on cycles that are quarterly or annual. We have to move toward much more rapid-fire innovation.
Awesome. Dougal, how about you?
Yeah, I think a big part is the surety of sort of where we headed, right? And so being able to get some clarity and collaboration happening on, how do we form up the right level of participation to go and do something and take advantage of some of these new capabilities and really push it forward. Adoption in conversation with clients, it's confusing out there right now, and many entities aren't sure where to invest their next dollar as they go through the digital transformation. And so for us as one bank, it's easy to have a conversation about the things that we have, but when you look broadly, what's actually evolving in the ecosystem is important because some of these entities don't necessarily have the capacity and ability to make a bet and take on some of that test and learn activity that Chris is mentioning. So being able to make sure that we kind of steer it in a way collectively as an ecosystem to solve those broader challenges that I was mentioning, and really then form up to attack them and really deliver new value, I think is the biggest barrier right now that we need to make sure that we collaborate and coalesce around.
Excellent. Christine, you're going to tell us you've got it all in hand, so you're going to get it done.
I'm going to make sure we're not the only panel here at the summit that doesn't reference talent. Chris talked about a change in mindset. The sheer amount of activity and opportunity that we have means that we are in a really exciting place in terms of training, developing new talent. It's a potential barrier in terms of just the pace at which we are able to really get there. So top of mind.
Excellent. And just from Visa's perspective, we're incredibly excited. There's a lot of things, the themes that came out is around, how do we make these experiences better from our perspective? How do we support the experiences that you can deliver in a rail-agnostic way, whether that's RTR, account-based payments, open banking, et cetera. So we're pretty excited. And then the simple fact that we don't talk enough about cross-border. How do we truly enable cross-border? I think that's certainly a role that we play as a global network. So really excited. John, I'm going to give you last word here because I think we are at time. Over to you, John. Wrap us up.
I'm just going to say, I think leveraging great in-market solutions from other jurisdictions and doing what Chris said, learn, put it aside, don't build things that we don't need, make sure that we work together for the ubiquity of the ecosystem. Some things are in the competitive space, others are just utility. We just need to just get things done for Canadians and get the best possible, efficient, safe and sound system that we can build for Canada. And that's our role in the Senate, to ensure that we're the catalyst for that. And I appreciate my partners here today.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that's a wrap for us. I really appreciate everyone's participation. The recording will be available. I'm sure if anyone wants to reach out to any of us, we'll be happy to have other conversations. Thanks again for joining, and enjoy the rest of the sessions. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, all.